Okay, I believe we're live. Hello, everyone.
Well, hello, Julien.
Hello, Don. It's been another crazy week, hasn't it?
Uh, yeah, I have a feeling that from now on we can just leave the crazy adjective off because they're all going to be pretty much the same. It's just going to be another week.
It's all gonna be something something.
Yeah, there's different. Actually, it's wherever you place your focus is where you're going to find something new, something borrowed, something blue. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but we.
Are you suggesting I'm wearing a borrowed blue shirt here?
Haha, no.
No.
Although that wouldn't surprise me. Um, but but no. I mean, let's face it. We're seeing and having less and less of an ability to look at our past and project that forward
hmm
to create our future, which is how we've been working in duality for our lifetimes and for many many lifetimes. For those of us that have chosen to partake in that pleasure,
Well,
uh,
good point.
yeah.
Um,
So
and
therefore, the new and the unusual is becoming commonplace just by itself.
well, I'm gonna admit you outplayed what I expect you were gonna tell me. You kind of brought more guidance there than I was like, oh, this is actually quite deep. Thank you.
Well, hey, I only have to do it once a week, so therefore I pull out all stops for Wednesday night.
Great. Great. Well, it looks like we are live, and I was just looking down a little bit because I was checking my phone and seeing how it's playing out on my phone. Looks like it's doing well. And there's about a 5 to 7, excuse me, second delay. And I gotta remember that. But I still don't have such an easy time tracking the chat room. I believe you can though, right?
Yes, I believe I can.
Okay. So throughout today, I'm really hoping to field questions. I would like to do a bit more feeling guided today into what we talk about. Of course, we could talk about anything. Really, we're not here to push our agendas as much as talk about stuff we're interested in. And usually, if you ask us questions, we're going to tell you the way we're interested in it and how we would explore it anyhow.
Right, right.
So you can't even ask the wrong question. Um, like for instance, somebody asked me like, "Why do you have such a weird like rectangular pillow? Does this go all the way down to my back?" Somebody asked me that, and I was like, "Well, it's actually a custom-made pillow." And then they're like, "Oh, that's even more interesting. Why do you have a custom-made pillow? That is shaped exactly as it is in light gray." I said, "Well, are you a gamer?" And they're like, "You mean do I like play Parcheesi and Monopoly?" I said, "No. I mean, do you play video games? And any time you would consider yourself a gamer is when you're around other people who identify that they play video games somewhat addictively or maybe more than anyone else would sort of consider as normal." And they're like, "That's over my head." I'm like, "Well, you still want to know more about the pillow?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course." Well, this is actually reverse. This is the back of the pillow. And so I'll show you what's actually on the other side of the pillow. This is a gamer's dream pillow. It's a Christmas present. I'm scrolling it across the front, and you can see that it is actually a pillow of a Nintendo video game controller. And so this is going to be on the
Hmm.
quiz later. What is Julien's controller later? And you'll get, if you answer the question properly, we'll throw out a prize. Right? We're doing the prize thing now.
Is that where you got it at some like carnival where you
No,
you had to
my daughter.
throw balls at something?
It seems like something like that, right? But actually, it's a highly sought item on Etsy that usually is sold out. So there's
Ah.
a individual artist who makes these and other types of things, other kinds of controllers, and pillows for you. This one happens to be a perfect sort of body pillow for all uses and cases. That's a little bit more about me that most people probably didn't know about, which is a game that I'm interested in playing maybe every time we come up on the show. is what did you find out in this show about Julien that you did not already know about before? Because I'm interested in sharing more and more about me, because some people are maybe new to the experience of this show, and some people are not quite sure exactly what kind of person I am. They get a sense of my personality, but there's always deeper levels. I mean, so I can identify with being a gamer. So anybody who's a gamer, and who identifies with that term, we have sort of like a special nerd world for that, like a special geek world for that sort of thing, where we could talk geek in video gamer sort of, lingo, and talk about the latest video games and things like that. And we'd all get real excited, and, we could spend hours doing that. Giddy, it's like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's not even like it's a really large group of people, but it seems that everybody sort of knows about the gamers. It's what is that? Geeky group out there, people who play video games. They're all like young male adults or something. But no, at this point, they get into their 40s now, because it's whoever sort of started playing video games back when video games came out, like in the 80s with the Nintendo. Whoever sort of got hooked in remains hooked. It's a perfect demographic that's growing as anybody who gets interested in games goes. Very good for advertising and merchandise and product and everything, because it just means that the industry is literally expanding as people get older and as more people are born. So, like, my kid plays video games. Oh my God, surprise, surprise. I contributed to that larger demographic.
Yeah, Audrey's got her phone now, and she's got games on it too. And that was an era that passed me by. I mean, in fact, I was on Facebook. I don't know if it was earlier today or yesterday. It might have been yesterday, and there was a photo article about the Oregon Trail, and how there are still places where you can see the ruts of the
actual
wagons, wagons that it's like 400,000 people moved out to the west, and you can still see the ruts that the wagons went over, and they were comparing it to the early video game Oregon Trail, and I'm like, I didn't even know, and I had to look that one up, and it was like, I mean, such a basic design, and Pong, I remember playing Pong, but that was about it.
Yeah. God, Pong was right before everything started too.
It was. Yeah, and I mean, there was some Ms. Pac-Man and Pac-Man, that I played, but never really got into it all.
Yeah. So, I tell you what, I'll share just for giggles. I'll share something geeky about me every week, and you already know which one I've shared about today. And after the show, I'm going to post the question on Facebook, and this is going to be on the public, on my private page. So you actually have to add me on about the private page. I'm sorry, I'm not going to put this on the public page quite yet. But once I've answered the question, anybody who answers the question of what geeky thing did Julien show today about himself, or it doesn't have to be geeky. I might not show a geeky thing, I might show the inside of my nostrils, and that's not so geeky. But it'll be something.
That would be pretty geeky.
And I'm actually going to pull a random correct answer that's in there for a free half-hour session with me. I'll inform the person, and I'll have access to a free half-hour session that they can arrange with me. So cool. That's my fun little thing to you guys, and that'll be happening every week. Don't let me forget, Don. Even if it's at the end of the show. Right. But we do have some other more different kinds of things we wanted to talk about on the show today. I know I mentioned that I was I was audiobook listening to David's latest book, Ascension Mysteries. And I mentioned this to Don, and he got into it a little bit. I don't know. He got so far.
Yeah. I haven't gotten too far in the book, so I have to spend some time with that.
Well, as it suits it, but what I'm going to tell you is a little bit about what's in there, and I want to talk about a couple subjects in there. So those who have read the book or listened to the book or are familiar with what's in the book, reading reviews or something like that, I do want to talk about a bunch of stuff. I'm really excited. I really enjoyed it. I know that's not the synopsis that some people have. Some people think it runs on about his personal life too much. It could be filled with more data because, David's got so much data, it's coming out of his ears. And the stuff that he shares is really, really fascinating and interesting. So,
well, yeah, and I find that an interesting critique of the book because really we're wanting to know everything about the data, about different aspects of life, and trying to figure out the whys and the wherefores and that sort of thing is really in my opinion, is a separation energy way of moving with it, and it's about incorporating that into your being and who you are, that information, and expressing it, and expressing that through you, as opposed to looking at it from an outside perspective. And therefore, I think his stories lend a pathway for people to maybe either not necessarily duplicate, but maybe get an understanding of how it can move through them also.
Mm-hmm. Like,
it's looking at synchronicities and saying how does that, it's one thing to notice the synchronicity, it's another thing to find out how you can play with that.
Mm-hmm.
Two different things.
He made very good examples of synchronicity.
Yes.
Luck, overseeing how he's empowered over his environment somehow, how he identified with ESP, practicing it as a kid, how he identified with something was special about what's going on in his life that he happened to take notice, in so many different ways, and so a great deal of, we'll say, about the first half of the book, there is a lot of his personal journey, a lot of the exceptional things that happened, a lot of like him moving through history, this explains some of the major events that were public and how that affected his life and his mother's life and his brother and his friends and all these sorts of things. He uses some names, he changes the names for their privacy in some cases. But he really sort of gives you an idea of how human he is, because I think a lot of people love bashing him in many ways, or they love saying, wow, you're like, the biggest manipulator there is out there or something. But I think those who can empathize with his journey and kind of sort of see a little bit of themselves in various areas, the way that he's lived, like he had an overweight problem, and how he walked through that and dealt with that. Pangs of depression. He had periods where he was highly addicted to pot, and thought that was the best thing in the world. He had lots of challenges that many of us have, and he's here today. Seems like
right.
Just sort of some sort of dork off the street, talking about stuff and putting things together in ways that are actually quite amazing, and it's drawn to him. People who trust him, and people who trust him with some of the most incredible and challenging to digest kind of information that's out there. There's a lot of information I feel like he could share, but he doesn't feel that humanity is ready to digest. And I know this because I get a little bit of that hint from my experience with the Pleiadians. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this is kind of stuff where it's like their lifestyle is a little out of bounds compared to ours. Sort of decisions they might make are like things that we would never be ready to do. And it's not even like that's their culture. There's just people who are in that reality that spontaneously do some strange stuff. And nobody's there to stop them. Nobody's there to tell them, hey, oh my God, this is crisis mode. You can't start doing this or something like that. You just can't start roller skating down the hallways and, while eating ice cream while it's dripping everywhere. I mean, it's just, no one says, stop. It's kind of like somehow everything's just going to work out and everyone's just laughs or points. And so isn't that interesting? He's doing something we've never seen before. And doing it naked,
Right.
maybe. I don't know.
Right.
Drinking a bit of water here. Just so you know, fellows who are watching, Don and I have a setup here where he's not actually able to see my camera. It's quite unfortunate. Because the tool that I have for broadcasting says you can't use this video in Skype as well. So I have my video being shown here in this tool, and I'm grabbing a piece of Don's Skype window. Is off to the side, and I grab a piece of his Skype window, puts it there, so he doesn't get to see me because it says you can't turn on the video, and he can't see like within this. So at best, he sees me like 5-second delay, pointing at him.
In the past, I've been able to actually watch you in Skype over the last few weeks. I don't know what has changed on your end.
I have a camera here that is acting foolish. I could try again.
Nah, don't worry about it, because I'll just watch you on the Facebook and know that it's past tense.
All right. Well,
yeah.
I'm going to give it another shot because it usually is quite nice to have something. Sometimes it drops off. Hey, it actually worked. I tried it earlier, it didn't work.
Okay.
Oh, I'm really glad. This has a wide angle lens. It shows how messy it is behind me, and you can totally see that, Don. I'm glad that's not on the video feed, eh?
Eh? Actually, I can speak Canadian too.
Well.
Beauty, eh?
Is that officially in our dictionary? I think it is, right?
I think it is. Except
it actually comes right before the letter A. Is A, just in case you don't know where to find A.
Yeah.
It sounds the same as the letter A. So, where were we? Talking about David Wilcock and his book in general. There's a great deal to observe in his life that we can sort of look at in our own. And when he talks about Ascension, this is kind of like the Ascension mysteries, he's really talking about how he's waking up. Like a lot of people wonder, like, hey, how do you get psychic abilities? How do you learn how to channel? How do you get to be awake or blah, 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 blah? Is it just something you're born with? Where does it come from? And how can you begin sort of believing in yourself when, some of the stuff he talks about is kind of like everything. Like he's done channeling. He's done it. He's done that. He's been very accurate with a lot of premonitions as well. He writes down his dreams. It's one of the most fascinating things that you can find anybody does. He writes down his dreams every morning. What he can remember. He speaks them into a recorder, and then he goes on with his day. And later on, he transcribes them. He writes them down. He listens to it. He writes it down. It could be years and years later, and that's his personal message for the day. And sometimes the stuff that he gets is pertinent to the actual day. Like, doesn't make any sense unless you just lived it that day.
Right.
So he might do some transcription in the afternoon or whatever, and he's doing like 7-8 years back, and it's talking about the day he just had. Like holy smokes, how does that work? And that's lets him know that time is not linear, that everything is all happening at the same time. I had a session with a lady, and she wanted to understand a little bit more about her timing and things, and timing and blah blah blah. And I said, your guides are being actually quite clear. They want me to talk about time and how time is happening all at the same time. So when you talk about linearly, imagine, do you remember those old toys called koosh balls? It's basically a kid's ball, and it has a bunch of different strings out. It basically looks like a porcupine, right? Except it's made of rubber, and it's cute and squishy and stretchy and all that. It's basically like a porcupine. It's a little rubber ball, and it's got all these different areas. You can imagine that it's like the sun. The sun has got rays shooting out of it. When we draw a sun, we do a circle. We draw all these little rays sticking out, or like spokes on a gear. Same sort of effect. There is this idea of a central reality where all these tangent possibilities, like these time lines, we'll call them lines, and you sort of hop around between these lines. that are sticking out, and in each area of the line, it's kind of like an elevator. So that even you've got like a line that lasts 10,000 years sticking out, goes 10,000 years out, it explores for 10,000 years. If you keep hitting your head against this wall, what's going to happen? Something like that. And that timeline exists, and it shows you all the possible things that can happen if you keep hitting your head against the wall for 10,000 years. And you can jump into that, like in the elevator, somewhere before 10,000 years is complete, and you can see how it is, and then you can jump from that elevator to the next elevator. So you're kind of a bit like Tarzan in a way, swinging between the trees with vines, which are momentous experiences, and they jump you between multiple timelines. So you're basically swinging around with all your thoughts all the time, and you're going through a journey of your own making. So at the same time, imagine that you're like a spider and you're leaving a thread of silk behind you, and that we call your past. And you sort of like knit a whole bunch of these timelines together, and you create your own line that is perpendicular to what has already been established as all possibilities in the way of the koosh ball. And you sort of like go around and create a web-like experience that never sort of backtracks over itself. If it backtracks over itself, you say, I've done this before. Well, you're never exactly in the same spot, but you are maybe on the same thread that says, if I yell at my wife and say this, she's always going to slap me across the face. And so therefore you come back to that timeline and realize, oh, I did it, and then I could maybe do something different, because you identify with the fact that you're in a revolving door, a paradox of sorts where you can't escape. You're causing the problem, and you're also receiving all possibilities that always end with the problem starting over. Within this, we journey through time. All possibilities exist at the same time. It's the mind that's sort of like that thread, like the spider web thread, that suggests that there's linearity, as there is linearity between what's following us, which we call our memories. This is what I did yesterday, blah, 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 blah. Of course, it's really thick if it's of only about 5 seconds ago, but it gets thinner around 24 hours, it gets thinner around 48 hours, it gets thinner around about a week or two, and then it gets real thin longer than that. And so really what sort of like retained of your memories becomes less and less the longer you go. You're almost like stretching this thing out. And the reason why I'm getting into all like these sort of details about the texture and the way that we move through time is because we're journeying through time like astronauts journey through space. We're in a vessel called our body, and for the most part, we can assume that we're going to wake up with our body in the, and that we can adopt the same sort of approach to what we would do with our body day in, day out. But even then, our own body. Hold on.
Holding.
Yeah, it's funny when I restart the video for you, my own camera wants to freeze up.
Yeah, well, you're frozen on the video for me, so.
Yeah. Okay.
You can disregard that if you want to.
Well, I don't want to make it that simple.
Of course not.
Ah, all right. I created a brand new window on the fly. People can see my camera magic. Yes, I have camera magic. I can make Don disappear and reappear at will, and that's magic, right? Anyways,
at that.
Yeah, it's maybe kind of old school magic. But my point with time is that to get a greater sense of it, and this is what was coming through with the guides, is understand your went out again. Understand your present moments. Understand what you're doing right now and what you're observing right now affects everything you see that could come into being next. And so your gaze, where your head is at, what you're thinking about, what you're touching, what you're feeling, what you're smelling, your mind is compiling it, like a computer compiling a video that's going to be played on your computer screen. It needs to compile the data. It's just the data. It's not like a film strip like in the past. But there's a compilation, compiling. And you're choosing right before the video is shown what's going to be seen. So if I wave my hand in front of my face and I go like this and I say, oh, That was quite unexpected. I didn't know I was going to do that. But I was letting guidance give me that experience to move my hand in front of my face to make a point. I didn't know exactly what the point was going to be or exactly why it was going to be made that way. I'm just sort of channeling myself. I'm channeling my thoughts. I'm letting it sort of like pour out of me. I'm letting guidance let me, because I have an intention for what I want to get across, I'm letting guidance, speak for me in a lot of ways. Am I responsible for it? Of course I am. Just in the same way as I'm responsible for everything that I say, do, or share, or even listen to. Ironically, you'd say, well, you're not responsible for what you hear. And I said, actually, I am responsible for what I hear. And that is also uncommon for some people to think about things that way. But you start to take the idea of responsibility differently. You start to find a more gentler way of describing the fact that you're having an experience in the present moment, and you're actually in charge of it. Just like in a video game, you have a controller. Come on, I got props. I can get a controller prop. Here we go. So you got a game controller, and just like you're responsible and moving the character with the knobs and the buttons and all this sort of thing, making them jump and climb the character, or moving the Tetris blocks, left and right. Just as you're animating your body and choosing what you're doing, your body is responding to your thoughts and your interests and what you want to do and what you try to do. You may not be able to hop over that 12-foot wall, because in the video game you can't hop over a 12-foot wall. But you can walk around it. You can get a rope. You can look for all sorts of solutions. If we were to say you've got a 12-foot wall, Dawn, and your life ends here unless you can cross this 12-foot wall, you're going nowhere. Somebody put you in a 12-foot pit. It's like, this is your end of your life unless you can get out of this 12-foot pit. And we're not giving you a ladder, we're not giving you a rope, but anybody can come by and laugh and yell at you and say, sucks to be you or something. You would find a way out. You'd make a friend. You'd find a way of climbing that surface. You'd think and you'd work out how to get there. And on one hand, it might seem like this is a really cruel game. This really feels like this obstacle is not a challenge I want to have today. I want to take a nap. I want to wake up, and I want to not be there tomorrow, right? And in many ways, there's opportunities there to take a nap and wake up refreshed with new concepts, more of an expanded mind, because you go into your other higher self when you sleep, and you sort of play out probabilities and stuff. And you say, well, that doesn't get people out of prison that are in prison right now. And I say, that's not true. People get out of prison early all the time. Lots of reasons for getting out of prison. But when you're in prison, they do their best to convince you don't get out of this place. They do your best to keep your vibration low so that you can't conceive of higher possibilities. It's very, very important that they push low vibrational elf waves through prison, because you know what happens? If you have a prison that's a happy prison, people get out. People escape. People find their way out. It's really kind of strange, but a phenomenon, but it's actually quite normal when the warden is not sort of like a badass, and when people get too friendly with the prisoners, and things happen. They get friendly with the prisoners, and prisoners can take advantage of that, and they can get out. But they're not doing that to be cruel. They're doing it because their vibration is no longer what it's like in the prison. Their vibration is to be something other than that experience, and they can draw that in, and they find their way through that, and they follow the guidance. They follow this moment to moment to moment, and maybe all the moments are not enough to escape, but they make an attempt where they learn a lot, and they get a lot of confidence.
Yeah, and if you like have read any of Nelson Mandela's experiences in prison too, I mean, he talks about the fact that just because you are in the facility doesn't necessarily mean in your mind you have to be in prison.
That's right.
And that's what he used all those years. It was that thinking in order to not be imprisoned. So that's another way of looking at not necessarily just getting out, but also not being totally affected by your immediate surroundings.
Yes. And in order to do that, he would have to have made his local environment, like his room,
Mm-hmm.
a true home, like a
Yes.
true blessing to himself, which everyone can do here. And I was actually going to
Mm-hmm.
get to that point, is how do we change our surroundings, our reality? How do we move to a time that includes what we're looking for? And sometimes we call this attracting. And I can call it journeying. I mean, we can call it, magnetic push or pull, however you want to do it. But for the sake of the mind does not have the ability to conceive of all factors. Let's just say I want to be a millionaire. And let's just say because I believe in possibilities, I should be able to be a millionaire tomorrow. And yes, God says, see, God or whatever higher self says, absolutely, you can be a millionaire tomorrow. And I said, I want to be a millionaire, and I want it to be little effort. No effort. I said, great, no effort. You'll be going to be a millionaire tomorrow, no effort. And higher self says, well, okay, he wants to be a millionaire tomorrow. What's the fastest, easiest way that we can make this kid a millionaire tomorrow? Not considering how comfortable it might be. He didn't say it had to be comfortable. He didn't say it had to be with the right people. He didn't say he had to be at home. He didn't say that anything had to stay the way. We can change his entire world so that he can get the millionaire status. And, the fastest way to do it with the beliefs that he holds is he gets kidnapped by a millionaire at this moment. That's the most likely thing that could happen. And he befriends them. That's the most likely way that Julien will become a millionaire tomorrow. And we talk about kidnap like the only people that he believes would kidnap are people that want to kill him and tell him to stop talking publicly about what he talks about. So, not only does he have access to be a millionaire, he's also access with a millionaire who's with somebody on the inside of the cabal.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I look at my higher self with a strange frown, and I said, this is not what I had in mind. And I was like, well, you did get everything you asked for, technically, within the definition of saying this is all that matters with regard to put this as a priority, number one, because, everything that's got to happen within 24 hours sort of sets into a great deal of change that needs to take place. So you always get what you ask for, but most of the time you already have instilled within you safeguards to get what you asked for, by being a part of a reality where you also believe in the opposite. Now, why would we do that? Why do we come to a world where we believe this and we believe this, and together it's like rock, paper, scissors, right? It's like every time you want to beat your opponent with a rock, he's never picking scissors, he's picking paper. And you're like, come on, I want to beat you. You got to pick scissors sometimes. Stop picking paper. It's like, well, I'm only picking paper because I know you're picking rock. And I'll beat you every time. It's like, I'm smarter than you in the most simplistic way possible. Higher self is smarter than your ego self. End of story. Everything that the ego self can conceive of higher self has already got a million different ways in which to make sure that your journey is going to be a lot better and a lot more productive than what you've established in your thought banks. Now that can be discouraging because it makes you feel sort of powerless, at least from the mind's point of view. And that's not the intention of your higher self, is to make you feel powerless. Its intention is actually to make you feel powerful. But it doesn't do it through changing your entire life, overnight. Putting you on a talent show and you're all of a sudden famous and you're a millionaire overnight because people want to sign you to their records or something like that, right? This doesn't play out. We do have those experiences, and we do sort of glamorize them in our society. This idea that you can, be someone overnight.
Mm-hmm.
We do that in our media, in our movies, this whole sort of thing. But even when you consider the idea of maybe something like someone's on, competing on the show The Voice, which is a singing competition between, many people that get picked and they get all eliminated over time. These people have a significant lifespan of singing, a significant lifespan of every moment between week to week, them training their voice and them training their instrument. Imagine that, if you are a NASCAR driver and you've got a nice pit crew, if you could get any more juice and strength out of that car, you're going to be down there working on it too. So a lot of the drivers are actually quite experts on their own cars as well, and making these personal adjustments and personal fine tunes and always sort of like taking their future into their hands, right? So nowhere does it ever say that you are not that you don't have an opportunity to take things into your hands, but in order to take some things into your hands to extremes, you might say that it takes quite a while for you to gain that kind of training, that level of knowledge, that level of experience. Just like the idea is that you can't just put anybody on the voice. Hey, you on the street. Yeah, have you ever sung, Sesame Street or something like that? That's enough. You can get on we're going to put you on the show, and we'll either make fun of you or we'll say you're the next best hit, and we should be, checking in on you. But they don't do that. They do it so that people can identify sort of like what sort of like minimum skill level it takes to be on this show, because they don't have everybody in the world auditioning like America's Got Talent. They have people who have agents that sort of set them up for that particular show. Now, where I'm going with this, with regards to time and sort of going back to sort of like the origins of what's the point in the way that we attract our reality through understanding time better, it's really quite simple. All you need to do is give attention to the improvement of your emotional sphere. That's all you gotta do. If you're paying attention to what you can do to improve how you feel, not others, but if helping others makes you feel good, then that's going to help. Okay? But your priority is yourself. Your priority is you. Does that mean you can feel emotionless when someone else is crying, screaming, or their head off? Yeah. If you feel better in that space, being disconnected, then wonderful. Now, the people who identify with helping someone makes them feel good. Why wouldn't you want to feel good because you're helping someone else and helping them feel good? You can't help someone if you're not going to be able to actually help them. And I think people are not that familiar with that. They say, well, I could always give money to the guy on the side of the street. Well, that's fine. But if you're not actively in awareness that you are truly transforming something, you're really not pushing the thing. You're not pushing the meter very far. So, my baby cries, Hazel cries. It's all incidental whether I'm going to go and support her or not. But if I were to go help her every time she, was standing up, holding on to something and fell on her butt, I'd be doing that all day. And she would probably get used to the idea of me doing that. And when she is looking for my attention, she'll make sure she does that to get my attention. There'll be a logarithmic reality that sets into her subconscious of how to get attention. Now, anyone who's had kids has seen these sorts of things firsthand, but the subconscious does the same thing. It's just as childish in a way. So it says, hey, this worked. I'm going to try doing it again to see if it'll work again. Right? And it may work sort of okay the next time. And on like the third try, it doesn't work. You like pitch a fit. You're like, oh my God, come on. I totally wanted it to be this way, but you forgot that you're living in a malleable world where you're actually influencing the experience as you're going. The only time that many people can sort of like choose a reality and they get it without really trying is because they actually really just say and decide what reality is going to be or what it is based on what they're saying it is, even if they're not there. You can say what it's going to be by saying what it is right now, even if it's not like that right now. You can say Hillary for president, and that's just the way it's going to be, and there's nothing that's going to stop your reality from having that happen. Okay? So all Hillary supporters, they end up in a world where Hillary wins. Okay? All Trump supporters in a reality where Trump wins. If you're neither, well, it'll be interesting to see who's going to win when you don't have an interest in
Where
either.
does it show up?
Yeah, where does it show up? Is your path of least resistance going to lead you to no election? Is it going to lead to a strange election? Is it going to lead to bickering over the votes? Is it going to lead into, bickering over the votes for 6 months and how, everything was rigged and that was rigged and that was rigged being rigged and that was a fake rig and nobody really knows who the president. It got to be one of those things, like Al Gore and, that period of time. There's any number of games that we can play in order to sort of slow things down. Like say, I'm not ready for the next president. Let's just have a bunch of shenanigans go on so that we're not totally having to commit to this president or something like that. Those are available. Those are path of least resistance because you've seen that. But again, you say, well, can I choose? Can I choose if there's not going to be a president? Okay, well, there's a lot of realities that lie within, there not be a president. We can have an alien invasion that just sort of takes over and says, we're your new rulers. You don't worry about your president anymore. We're your new people to pay attention to. Simple as that. And are there people out there? Are there groups out there? Of course there are. And of course those existences are possible because technically anything you want to believe that's evil, you open the door to that reality coming in. There was a time where this whole area was safe, and I'm gonna use a little bit from David's book here. We live in a star cluster, which means basically our sun, a bunch of local suns, all sort of live within a group, call it a neighborhood, right? And this neighborhood is protected for the most part from really, really bad stuff, bad ETs, low vibrational stuff, and so anybody that was really good, they were allowed in, and everything was bad. They had these Death Star-like things that would just scare them off. Death Star-like planets. Say, there's no way you're going to survive a fight with me. We're going to keep you out. Drinking some water. So there's no way you're going to get in. And these Guardians that were sixth-dimensional, they're like, this should keep them safe for a while to evolve and, discover, who they can be as a society and as people and all these different planets within the star cluster. It should be fine. Except we got to a point where we started inviting bad guys through our own thoughts. We started inviting cruelty. We started inviting difficulty. We were all quite happy for quite some time, the earlier state of our people. And then we sought creativity. And within creativity, we found great creativity within contrast. That's just the natural way about discovery. So as much as we want to say, the Guardians hit the nail on the head and said, this is exactly what you need to do to be happy, turns out not everyone's interested in having thoughts exactly like that. So we creatively outmatched all the thoughts that they thought that we might be thinking and left their protection over our reality in the dust. And so in this case, we're much more free for our own imprisonment as we are our own exploration and freedom. We are definitely in the position at this time, since 2012, but the most right now, to realize that we are playing in a grand sandbox of our own design, of our own workings. And I'm not going to stop talking from that perspective. And from that perspective, I speak from mine. This is Julien's Kingdom. Welcome, everyone, to Julien's Kingdom. I'm your king. Right?
Okay.
I can talk to you this way, but I know that you could talk to me the exact same way. Don can be like, well, Julien's Kingdom, welcome to Don's Kingdom. How shall we interact and trade our resources, and shall we get together and plunder other people's realities by intimidating them or inviting them through joy and exploration and things like this? It's like some weird little game of world domination or something, right? We can go around and decide to influence whoever we want, and we say, Julien's Kingdom invites you into their reality. Think and say what I do, and you will enjoy your quality of life here. And if you ever have a question, you ever have a problem, just ask Julien. Julien is the one that keeps this thing running, keeps this ship going. And I can do that for maybe about 300 people. After that, my kingdom is too complex for me to run. I cannot help more than 300 people, even with just all my words and my thoughts and my deeds. And I'm even gonna say to some people, I don't care for you to be here. You know.
I mean, if you go back to our own history or whatever's recorded, the medieval times when we had a lot of royalty and kings and dukes and everything, that's how it all was. They were all little city states, and they were set up with the villages around them and that sort of thing. So we've already kind of had an experience like that. What you're talking about? We
have sort of done that thing.
Oh, did I bore you?
No, I just got a little bit of a cold today, and so I'm getting a bit of yawns every once in a while because I'm a bit more fatigued. But in general, we've seen that sort of reality, and maybe there's some people who want to return to that. I don't want to say feudal, but a more simplistic way of living life. Leave some people in charge of particular regional activities and leave people in charge of larger regional activities, and just sort of leave it as such.
And, I mean, you and I have had this conversation before, and I think we may have mentioned it once on the show, but as a possible future for us, that little fiefdoms or little communities are going to just kind of come up with their own rules, and if you're attracted, if you play the guitar and you want to be in the musical community, you'll go live here, and it may be in what we call Kansas now, but it may just be an area like that, and you go a little further down the road, and there'll be an agricultural community, and then another community that is whatever they choose that they want to, and just the idea of the community is going to attract people who want to live that sort of existence, which is really how the universe is built anyways.
Yes. What I see coming forward with the aid of technology, and even without technology, is a coalescing of environments that work well to provide environments particular experiences. So in one case, you've got Nashville, and it's all about learning how to sing and all this sort of thing, and you've got a lot of enjoyment that you can have, and all throughout Nashville, there's places to learn and teach you how to sing. It's already like that, right? We didn't have to do a whole lot of rework for Nashville, did we?
Right.
Nashville's also got great sushi. Who knew? Somebody brought sushi to Nashville. So there's an infrastructure to make sure that people get good sushi. But really what they did is they decided that Nashville was also going to be a high-profile place for rich people. Right? And so it has a lot of amenities for rich people. And in the interim, people who want to incidentally explore the idea of, high-end sushi, they can go have high-end sushi. But, it's only at some super posh high-end hotel or something. Now, within these realities, more and more people who follow their enthusiasm will set up shop where it feels good, Like, in this town, I love setting up my own local garden, right? Like community garden. And I want to do it near where I live. So it's even more local than the idea of a town or a city. It's like my neighborhood. And if that's what you love, it should be around the corner today. Okay? If that's something you want, like a local pea patch, then there must be some abandoned house nearby, or some lot that no one's doing anything, that's never been sold, or something where you can purchase a lot and get that going. Now, you might not be able to purchase it yourself. You're like, oh, what are you talking about? There might be joy, and but how am I supposed to buy it? Well, get people together. Find out who else wants to buy it. Maybe there's charities. Maybe there's the town will be willing to buy it for you. Things like this. is like, speak to your local community about that possibility. And what I see is that there's going to be technology that makes talking with your local community a lot easier, a lot faster, and a lot more believable. Kind of like in the way that government will not work the way that it has. It'll be much more a representation of what local cluster people will be interested in.
Right, and it kind of gets back to what you were talking about earlier when you were talking about responsibility. That you made the statement that you have the responsibility for what you hear. Mm-hmm. So you've got the responsibility for the experiences that are happening around you that are either a match to you or are not a match to you. And we've used responsibility in the past as a way to set up blame, set up shame, or maybe to use guilt. And the responsibility in a 5D world is a much different concept than that, because we're not going to be playing with shame and guilt and blame the same way we were doing in a 3D environment. So you get into responsibility. So I think what you're saying is, if there's something happening around you that you want to attract something else, or even if it's happening around you and it's just not a match for you, there's still a responsibility that you have for what is occurring.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
And we'll go back to the pea patch example. Let's say you have some opposition to the idea of having a pea patch. But let's just say there's a new world infrastructure. We're talking 5 years from now. There's a new world infrastructure. So we're imagining that we're a bit more advanced in the way that we communicate. And I'll give you a playful way of looking at what that can be. It doesn't have to be that way. We'll just say everybody sort of like votes on their smartphones for local politics. Okay? Or, township things. How taxes are spent. Whatever. Even if there's going to be things for taxes and what is worth raising taxes. Everybody's sort of playing this sort of like local video game of SimCity. And everybody's the mayor, but everything is a consensus decision, so everybody's voting yes and no. And yes and no can be seen how close it is to yes and how close it is to no, based on a tool that tells you how much you're committed to no and how much you're committed to yes, through a sort of like scale of 1 through 10. Like scale of 1 through 10, 5 being I don't want it to change. 1 through 4, I do want it to change. 6, 7, 8, 9, I do want to change. 10, it has to change. 0 says it absolutely is totally wrong, How comfortable am I with this statement? 0, not comfortable at all. 10, super comfortable. So there's a statement that comes out, and people sort of like rate it. And 5 is basically not enough. If everyone's voting 5, too complacent, don't care enough, right? So 5 is where you vote, where you say, I don't really give a shit. Sorry, I don't really care. Like I don't care for either direction of if it stays or if it changes. Pea patch or not, I don't care. 5, but it indicates that there's some weight. So everyone who's like, hey, well, don't vote at all. We only want people who are voting for the pea patch here. And that's not true community truth.
Right.
There needs to be the weight of complacency in the larger picture, right? So in any way, you might even receive a system where you get paid as the mayor for making a decision. I just say the mayor's the salary and the whole community that makes a decision, they take a percentage of the taxes. They actually decide how much they're going to get paid for voting on their phone app. Actually decide. And there's a system where there's even voting for what questions are going to be voted for. And so you can be just a citizen. There's 10,000 questions, and they only want to answer like one question a day as a community, because they can only implement one a day or one a week. And in order to push the pea patch discussion up the ladder, everybody gets 5 cents for just deciding if they want it to be something to be voted on, and they vote on 1 to 10. How much would you like to see this? So you could spend your day earning a living every day, just sort of like getting $1 for every time you say this should be voted on. And so you play that. And then they start to realize that some people are playing this political choosing game more than others, and they start offering them positions into the higher echelons where they make more significant decisions. Right? So if you've made 10,000 decisions, it kind of suggests that you're willing to go into the place where you're sort of like the inner circle, making those more significant decisions day in and day out. So it's almost like however you invest your time, quite literally, can be of value in exactly how you spend it. Now, when it comes to the pea patch, it's almost like it needs to, might take like a year before people start to notice. So you use all your traditional ways of getting people to notice. You use signs, you go to people's doors, you set up, whatever advertising you want to sort of like get people informed that this is on the list. Please, push it up in relevance. You're on the other side of town, but if you think it's a good idea and you like this idea, just make sure, when you open up your mailbox tomorrow and you punch a couple of yeses and nos or a couple ratings ups and downs, it's basically considered a yes. If you put 10, it's considered like a no. If you put a 0, and you might as well not even put a 5 because that'll move it nowhere. But
right.
if you don't even like the idea that I came up to your door and everything, you might be like, well, I specifically don't give a crap about this. I'm probably voting 5. You wasted my time. So it's up to each individual. Now, you might have a system in town where all the votes are seen. You can see who said what and who gave a crap and who didn't and all that sort of thing. If you want to, it could all be anonymous. Your town decides. Now, that alone, that system may be very attractive to some. And it may be very unattractive to some. Be like, oh my God, I'm never going to do that. I could never feel like my neighbors have a say over me or something like this. I could never live under that environment. That's too democratic in the kind of way that I don't like democracy or something. But, it may be like, I just want one guy to make all the decisions. I like him, I trust him, and I'll change him out every 4 years. That could be fine. It could be all it takes. And so your township or your environment or whatever will serve that purpose. Now, regarding pea patches, let's just say everybody in town wants a pea patch. Not only is it a good idea, they want to change the whole town into a pea patch. It's like, oh, this is great. So your idea comes up. Absolutely, yes, you are getting a pea patch. But once they see that successfully came through and everybody was voting for it, everybody's like, oh, wait, I want a pea patch too. I want a pea patch next to my house. I want a pea patch because it got unanimously voted in. This town is now pea patch heaven, right? Because it constantly gets unanimously voted in. And maybe the first, pea patch is the one that, has all sorts of tax support, and later on it gets less of the tax support and things like that. Or they start rethinking exactly how they did it, and the first pea patch is, scored big or something. Who knows? But it's a journey. It's a journey of discovery, and it's a journey of creativity, and it's a journey of following your passion. So at any point that you want to get involved in politics, it should be about something that you're passionate about, because that means that you're going to bring energy into its surfacing and relevance. This is already how it exists, okay? It already is this way. However, because you identify that you're not playing a game of Monopoly with the bank, you're playing Monopoly with some sinister person who invented the game Monopoly and knows every statistical way to take advantage of how to win under every given circumstance that you've played. It's like playing against a computer chess master that knows all the moves. A lot of people get really fed up, and that's sort of the phase that many people are in right now. They're like, I don't want to play chess with somebody who loves kicking my ass. Like, I don't want to play chess with someone who's way too good at all this. So we feel sort of helpless. And I want to say right now that chess player is not there. He's there by your admission of his existence alone. And you finding your own power necessitates you letting go of anyone else having power over you in the kind of way that this is suggested that they run and manipulate society. You need to let go of that idea, let go of giving that energy that way. Yes, in some ways, if people acknowledge that, then society can make a really quick change because the infrastructure can be easily allowed to be let go. I should say there never was a bad guy, and we got in this mess all on our own. There was no Illuminati, there was no secret government, there was no Corporation of America. We just got into this problem on ourselves. No evidence towards the contrary. It would be a lot harder for us to find a new level of sovereignty. So we did this to give ourselves more freedom. Identify that at the basis for why you're fighting to make change in the world. And identify that freedom is your own realization that you're empowered to make your own decision and choose your own reality moment to moment. Give yourself the instinctual realization of that and keep following it. Keep listening to that. Keep acknowledging that you are more awake every minute that you give to the idea that your thoughts and every second produce the reality that you will see in the short reality point in term. Now, and that I just want to reiterate the aspect of time, how to approach time. Assume time and it doesn't exist. What does that mean? That means that everything that you associate with time as clockwork doesn't have to stay that way. You can change the clockwork. You can change what time you get up. You can change what time you're going to go to work. You can change when you eat breakfast or lunch or dinner. You can change when your television show is going to be on. You can change all of that. You're the true ruler of time, because in the end, time is the experience of you on a journey, and it's the pace in which you flip the pages and have exceptional new things show up. Okay? So it's kind of like a rate system. It not rating, but it like a rate of experience, like frequency. It affects frequency. So time, as a representative of frequency, if you use time, then what you do is you choose to have things become more frequent if you want things right away. So if you want something right away, then everything that was working to bring it to you is going to slam it as quickly into your face as it can.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be kind of messy. It may be kind of like, well, we were working on getting him to be a millionaire, but if it has to happen by tomorrow, we're going to have to get him kidnapped. I mean, baseline, that's what we were starting with, and we were working it backwards. We were going to make all the millionaires in the future give all their money away, and everyone was going to be millionaires as well, and everyone was going to kind of be equal, or they were just going to give millions of dollars of their own money to people they thought were significantly useful in the next world, right? Because money starts to change in meaning and value and how it's used and whatever. Started saying, well, the best way to invest is to put it in the hands of the people with the creativity and the dynamic capability of doing something unique and beneficial for everyone with it. Just a common consensus thought, fully logical. I expect it to happen. That's already the way it is in my reality. But, in this world where the game of Monopoly is all based on how big your pocketbook is, people need to identify with Monopoly being a game that is just not a game that anybody's playing on anymore. Everyone's going to do their own thing. When everybody does their own thing and identifies their own priorities separate from the game of Monopoly, then no one wins the game of Monopoly, right?
Right.
All you got is people who are trying to play Monopoly against each other who are already sort of like masters of it, and it really goes not very far. Call that infighting or whatever. Anyways, time is your pacemaker in a way. And you have a lot more control over time than you realize, especially now. So let time either be a gift or let time be an enemy. Let yourself identify with time a little differently, and you will begin to find that time is never in your way. Time is always a service for you that is determined by your higher self and your guides and your broader essence and your broader being. Time is basically a specific judgment on their part on exactly how much you can fit through your pie hole. And if you want things to go fast, well, expect things to get intense. Expect things to get really intense if you want to go fast, if you want it now. And that's kind of what we did. We kind of said, I want it now. August was a very big, like, I want it and I want it now. And September was intense, still reeling from that, and October is still quite off the chain.
Yeah, you wanted to kind of get into that a little bit, didn't you, about kind of talking about October and the end of the year and next year.
Yeah, so August we said, I want something awesome. And so you went and you out and you bought like the most vicious bulldog for your backyard. September you said, I want to take this bulldog out in the streets and take it to the park and stuff. So you buy this chain that you take your bulldog out at, and kind of scares the shit out of everybody, to be clear. Like, oh my god, look at this crazy thing that, Julien's got with him now. I'm kind of intimidated, or I don't like being around Julien, or something. I don't like it. Or other things like, wow, Julien, you got balls. You got, a terrible creature in your hand. It's like a little raptor or something. And October is where, sort of like, oops, he was on a chain, but he kind of got loose. Can you help me find him? And everybody's like, what? Like, you let that bulldog or pit bull out that's totally dangerous out, and we all got to work together to sort of rescue this thing, and we're not sure exactly what to expect from it. That's how October comes out. It's like the greatest nightmare is off the hook, in a way. Not immediately, you can't see it, but as well as our greatest desires and creativity are out there, our greatest nightmares are also ready to be found and faced right around the corner. And and a lot of us are like, whoa, don't move. Don't move. The floor is loaded with traps. Don't make the wrong move. And we're kind of in that place where it's like, but I want to move. I want to be free. I can't stand it. It seems like the floor was always filled with traps, and they always caused traps to occur. And then they're like, well, yes, technically, the floor always was full of traps, and you always were stepping into your own problems, moment to moment, and you always had that level of responsibility. But right now, you got to find this sort of confidence, which, you know what, I don't care what I step on. I own it, and I'll deal with it later. I got a bulldog to catch. Like, I've got bigger things to deal with. And if you keep that priority in mind, you'll get through your priorities. You absolutely will. And you'll get through exactly what you're looking for. Maybe you want a home. Maybe you want, an experience of sushi. Doesn't matter. You will get what you're looking for. And you'll also be shown exactly what else is in your world that needs a little bit of editing, a little bit of personal attention. And October has a lot to do with that.
And maybe you could touch on this. Martha put a question in the box about, are we talking about potential futures right now? Now, I responded to her that I would look at potential futures from a purely personal basis because you're creating your own. Maybe you could touch on this a little bit more directly, because I know you've been kind of throwing out some possibilities out there, the way that you see things moving. But that is, I think that's a great question, because even just the idea of potential futures, what that means as we move forward from this point in time, even compared to when we were doing shows 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so potential futures, I'm not going to say everyone is ready for that, taking on full responsibility and seeing it all, but you're going to be taught what it takes. You're going to go through an education of that. You're in kindergarten, maybe you're in first grade, maybe you're in 6th grade. Law of attraction, 101.
Pre-K.
I don't know. Pre-K.
Yeah.
Everyone is going to have their education. And their education is their life journey. So whatever your skill level is, or whatever your knowledge level is, life is going to be tailored to that. Okay? Maybe somebody made $1 million in 24 hours. You're like, I want that. Well, okay, you were working with pennies yesterday, and you're doing quite well, and you want $1 million tomorrow. Okay, well, we're going to have to fast track you, put you in grade 13 or something. And between now and then, we need to get you the general tests that you need to pass. You need to pass all these tests. You pass all these tests, you can be in grade 13. So pass all the final exams for every year between pre-K and grade 13, and no problem. And if you don't pass them all, we'll tell you exactly what you need to pass if you want to try again for the next 24 hours and what's left for you to go through, right? It may be like you need to leave your family. Are you okay with realizing that your family does not run your reality? Okay, good. You leave your family. Are you willing to have your name changed to somebody else? Like whatever you ever identified with yourself is completely not the same. You basically take on the identity of a pre-existing millionaire that just died. Are you okay with that? Impersonating somebody else. Okay, we got something set up for you. You can do that. You know, are you willing to be in the witness protection program, which means that you still have to follow some rules despite you being a millionaire? Okay, are you willing to help the FBI? And then you're like, wait a second, why are all these things? Well, the reason why we've got all these things for you is like, one, because you don't like the FBI. Two, because you don't like all these other things that we're proposing, and these are really the only things you have to deal with. Like you love your family a lot, but you also love them to the loss of your own identity. If you want $1 million, that's your new identity. It clashes with your family at this time. You and your family cannot maintain $1 million relationship. You will end up with half of your money, and whoever you're with is going to leave you tomorrow because you're a new kind of millionaire douchebag in the way that you don't know how to live with $1 million. Okay, and you know the divorce settles you for half of your value. So it's like, so you're not getting $1 million if you're in this relationship, and if they know they can divorce you for half of it. Your $1 million has to come from a completely different source. So it's like, brain freeze here. How does this actually work? But it does. It does all play out in all these sort of mannerisms. Now you could say $1 million, but give it to the end of the year. How about that? And it's still a game of genie. What are you willing to do for your $1 million at the end of the year? And you'll be pushed. You'll be like, today's a day. You got to get out and go jogging. Like, what does jogging have to do with $1 million? Well, you're out of shape. And it turns out you got to sweat out all your old beliefs that prevent you from thinking that you're going to have $1 million. So you got to do yoga. You got to do exercise. You got to change your health. Like, well, too bad. Those are limiting factors, and you got to deal with them. So it's like, let's go for the $1 million. How long will it take for me to get $1 million without doing exercise and anything? It's like, we can get you that maybe a year. Like, a year, huh? Okay. Tell me what that journey looks like. Okay, well, during that journey, you are going to have to change your diet a little bit, but this is the kind of diet you already kind of like. You're just going to have to add sort of like supplements and things like this. You're going to have to go get liposuction, a little bit of surgery on your body, liposuction type of thing. And you're going to have to give up a couple friends that are not good for you. We're going to bring you some new friends that will tease the hell out of you into sort of like, fall for their higher vibrations. And and they're all going to live with you when you have your $1 million. They're going to be all your new best friends, because when you have $1 million, you need people who are going to ground you in a particular way, and your friends are going to make sure that you don't screw it up, and these friends, you're going to, learn to be friends with them before you have $1 million so that you can trust them and all this sort of thing, and that's how it's going to take place. And you're like, oh, okay. And what about my wife or my husband, I was like, well, you're going to have to work with them. They're going to have to work with you. Basically, you're going to have to come to this higher new level of trust. The kind of trust where you basically get out of each other's faces. Something like that. So when I talk about timelines and probabilities, what I just gave as an example can be anybody on the line's experience. Anyone who's watching this experience can run exactly that timeline. And
there's still some confusion, I think, between a potential future and the potential future.
They're the same.
Yes.
A potential future and the potential future are the same.
Does
Okay?
the potential future really exist because it's a conglomeration of?
Yes, it does, which is an
Okay,
assumption that if you follow the general way that your life is going, this is how it'll be.
but does that expand to a collective
Yes, it
future?
does.
Because I think
The
that's
only thing that
where the
changes
question is coming from.
timeline, the only thing that changes timeline is choice.
Hmm.
And choices has more meaning, as in like the higher self is like, I already knew you're gonna make that choice, I already prepared it for you. Okay?
Hmm.
The only thing that gives choice more meaning is how expanded is your awareness of consciousness and your ability to choose anything. Which is another way of saying, how free am I to live my creativity? And the more you're free and aware and believe you can live your creativity, the more control you actually have. Which is also a very high vibrational state of being, which means it's very happy to be in that place. When you're happy, doodling, drawing, playing, in your head with creativity, the world is like shifting like an Etch-a-Sketch. Like, whoa, we got these ideas. Oh, he's changing his mind. Okay, change everything. Change it all around. All right, so when you're like 5 years old, your world is like a blur, what can be out there in the future. The only thing
Right.
that keeps it less of a blur is your commitment to certain aspects, which are other people's timelines, like your families and your parents' timelines. Just because you have a certain commitment to listening to them, they're your God, in a way. And anything that you propose as God holds certain timelines together because you're giving a higher level of responsibility to someone else. When you give that responsibility to yourself, that's when you change timelines in a way that you would call changing timelines.
Hmm.
All right?
Okay.
So the more responsibility you can give to yourself without spooking the crap out of yourself, and the level of responsibility that comes with it, the
Hmm.
more you can do whatever you wish. But you can only do really exceptional things when you're exceptionally excited. You want to fix things that are wrong, you're going to have to invest in deep diving and holding your breath and doing things you don't want to do. Okay?
Right.
So if you want to change something because it's wrong, bad, or not right, get your energy levels high enough so that you have enough oxygen to go deep diving and come back without losing your position and forgetting that you're God and everything's perfect and that everything's wonderful. Otherwise, you'll come back depressed. You'll be like, oh, I wasn't successful, blah, 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 blah. But there's no journey here. There's no game in this way where you need to go save people. You're only
Yeah.
saving aspects of yourself. And you can take your time with all of them.
I'm looking for it now, but
Question?
no. It was actually a quote that KP had on his blog, and I
Oh, yeah.
found that. Um, keep talking. I'll as soon as
right.
I find it out.
So, in all case and senses of the word, I'm speaking from my kingdom. Okay? I'm the Lord of my kingdom. And I can give myself that title. And my kingdom involves what I invite from all of you. You're all sovereign, so I don't give you any less rights than I have given to myself. If I give you more rights, then I'm living in your kingdom at the time that I give you more power, and I let you guide the ship. So if I'm listening to you, Don, and you're telling me a story, I'm following your ship.
Right.
I'm on your ship. I'm listening to what your kingdom is presenting. And I can say, oh, that's hogwash, Don. I don't like it. And that might be a violent way of saying, we're going to war over this subject. You'd be like, no, it is. You're going to eat this, and you're going to like it. You know? You can go to war over it. Say, Don, why don't you do the dishes? And Don's like, I got a very good excuse. I don't live in your house. I was like, well, that's no excuse. I could say, Don, why didn't you get someone to do it? You know?
Right.
And who knows how the conversation goes. But it can get silly. Just as sometimes when you watch an argument between two people, you're like, you're arguing over nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you fighting over? You know? You took his his favorite spoon from the silverware cabinet. I don't get it. Why are you fighting? There's so many things that we anchor in our kingdom. And when we live together with someone else, there's no greater challenge to the state of our kingdom than having someone live near us who could potentially screw things up. Don't touch that. Don't touch that. Don't mess with this. Don't mess with my thing. Okay, so living together and having kids is the ultimate way of seeing, am I true king of my kingdom? But at the same time is, if I'm going to be a true king of my kingdom, can I respect everyone else's kingdom that they have in their own space?
So I found the quote that KP put in his one blog posting it's no, it is not your responsibility to face and oppose it all. What you are here for is to embrace and be the light. Mm-hmm. So a little bit late, but I thought that was encapsulated a lot of it.
So you'll note much of our kingdoms have common ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where we have common ground is where we have the most to give each other and the most to expand, right? So we both show up at a game of chess that's halfway done. Yeah. And we're both going to say, Don and I, we're going to play the white side. The black side's playing by somebody else. We can work together to try to make sure the white side wins.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you can leave me like, I got to use the washroom or something, or I got to go have dinner. And I'm left with whatever it is. And I can even say, I'm going to step away. I got to go and be somewhere. I don't even have to finish this. And some people think they got to finish everything, and they really don't.
Right. No.
They can let higher self determine, I'm going to come back tomorrow and see if anybody else played and see if it's still exactly where I left it, or maybe it took care of itself. Because in other ways, you go home and you have the thoughts of chess and how the moves are in your subconscious, and you're thinking about what you would have done and stuff, and actually some of those moves of what you would have done next gets played. You didn't even move the piece yourself, but you had the thoughts. And the thoughts led to the experience of inviting another to do so in a given circumstance. And that sort of thing happens all the time. Other people, because they overlap your kingdom, are taking part and care for your kingdom where you're not even giving attention to your own kingdom.
Right.
I'm not talking about your house. I'm talking about things that you sometimes take responsibility for while others can pick up where you left off. And that's what a community is. That's what communities are for. In the future, in my reality and most people's realities, communities will have easier times of communicating with each other so that they don't feel like they're crossing each other's wires unfairly. If you move in a community where everything that you vote on is shot down, another community in this system may say, actually, everything you vote for is a lot similar to what we vote yes on over here. How about you come join us? You sound like one of our citizens. And you may literally have people in your community whose job and best interest is to find people who don't even live in the community and tell them that they belong in yours so that they'll vote your way. Does that make sense?
Yes. So was there anything else you wanted to get into as far as the end of the year that you're seeing, and talk a little bit about 2017?
Yeah. I did want to talk about a bit of how the rest of this year is going to pan out.
Right.
Something in November is going to be very big. Well, around 2.5 to 3 weeks into November, something really big is going to happen. I want to say before Thanksgiving, but around that time. This is something that probably will affect everybody. Maybe 80% of people listening will take note of it affecting them in some way. Most people will be affected but won't realize the effects until much later, like a long time later. There's it's going to feel kind of dark in the later half of November and the beginning of December. It's going to feel like there's this place where you can't get answers. I know it sounds kind of crummy, but it's actually a reset point. And I think some people might even feel may feel fearful.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a big reset spawning point. It takes a while. And the best thing that you can do is take care of yourself and people that are close to you. As long as you're doing that to the best of your ability, you will have a fantastic life following that. Like, fantastic life. I suggest maybe always doing that, but in this particular case, you're going to wonder what to do with yourself, and that's what you do with yourself. Okay? So maybe for about 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks. Last week of November, first week of December. The Christmas season is going to be very commercial this year. Significantly commercial. And that commercial is going to go overboard in the kind of way that everybody sort of sees through it. The commercialness of it. When I say commercial, it's like I'm saying commercial because you guys and most people will see it as too commercial. Like too silly. Too profit oriented. Things like that.
Right.
And, this is not a new theme, right? There's been, Hallmark shows that talk about the spirit of Christmas and all that sort of thing. But the spirit of Christmas this year is going to be big and bold. Very, very big and bold. And that spirit of Christmas, you can practically talk with him right now. And, you can follow the name Santa Claus or St. Nicholas or something like that. But that spirit of Christmas has very big plans. Very, 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 very big plans. And some people might receive this as a gift. Some people might have tears. Most people will have some sort of tears of joy around Christmas. There's going to be a big sort of everything's going to be all right sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It really sort of humbles me. It also makes me want to cry right now, the way the spirit of Christmas or that energy is showing me it in the way that I can feel it. There's going to be a great deal of humbling at the end of the year. There's already plenty of humbling on the way there. But at the end of the year, there'll be a kind of humbling where everyone can look side by side and admit that everyone's humbled for the exact same reason. And as a result, it'll be one of the largest examples of how to let go in the world or in large communities that will have ever be identified ever before. And as a result, humanity will seek to recreate that experience throughout next year so that very big changes can occur. Like, it's going to be studied, it's going to be analyzed, it's going to be attempted to be recreated and reinstituted. But because it was an invitation of the subconscious, it'll never sort of come together the same way. It'll never sort of come together all at the conscious level. It will for those who commit to a certain path of following those sorts of energies and the kinds of experiences that are like that, the high vibration and all that sort of thing. Those groups will be able to access it and be a part of it, and it'll be very, very, very powerful. And those who are having trouble and confused about how law of attraction works and have difficulty understanding why they create their own nightmares and this sort of thing, they'll be welcomed into these communities and they'll wake up. Kind of like being baptized by the church. You have a whole new opportunity to awaken, right? Because everyone is clear and clear-headed about things in such a way that that anybody can help you in a very clear sense. And these communities will be all over the place. There'll be probably thousands of them, something like that. Communities of hundreds or more people. Some of the largest ones will be televised. 1 second. By the end of next year, almost all the technology will be revealed that we ever wished for will be true, but not implemented.
Okay.
But it'll be a period of time where people can begin to gravitate in 2018 towards the infrastructure for whatever technology excites them. Like if you want to get into anti-gravity vehicles, you can go get a job, at Ford or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll train you because they need a lot of people for this, that, and the other thing. A lot of people, with a certain aptitude will get into those courses, and some won't get into those courses, but you could still be a part of it. The economy is still going to run the way that we understand it. Money will be. But what we invest our money in will be completely different. Where our money goes will be entirely different. I want to say taxes gets a complete revamp or something.
Okay.
And when I say complete revamp, I mean revamp to the degree almost like you get money,
right?
Instead of paying taxes, kind of thing. Like nearly flipped on its head.
Mm-hmm.
And that I believe happens around the middle of next year. Almost because it's behind alternatives. It's like behind the wheel.
Yeah.
And it seeks governments and companies and things like that seek extinction without getting on board, or find extinction by not getting on board. In the spring, there's going to be a war. I want to say not necessarily a war, but there's going to be a loss of life. It'll be the last people that are close to the vibration of losing their lives for something.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be the last example of losing life for the sake of a cause. Many people will be, that's excellent or whatever like that, but there's going to be some sort of example of that in the spring. When we look at the new year, that spirit of Christmas is going to sort of like make us feel sort of like in a daze going into January. We might not sure exactly what we're supposed to do. We're going to feel like, oh, did you see what I saw or something? Whoa. And priorities will be recalibrated in a very short span of time. Very, very short span of time. At a gigantic scale. And as a result, to be a great deal of new lines of communication with extraterrestrials, which can open up to public levels of that. Public observation of communication with extraterrestrials in ways, or more of that will feel realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm ready to sign out at this time.
Okay.
There is a promotion right now for sessions. They're 50% off right now. I'm going to be creating the Facebook link for people on Facebook to get to that. It's going to be limited till November 4th to book, but you can book into the future. I've never done 50% off before. I've always done 30% off. And right now, I can not see a better time for me to engage and participate and work with everybody. And that's pretty much why I'm doing this. It's to really open my doors very wide. I encourage everyone to come and reach me. Book a time. Let's go through what you're going through. I want to help. I want to be there. I want you to feel clear-headed about your journey, about what you can expect, and understand what you're doing for yourself and what you're attracting and what your guides have to say. I'm very excited for this. I know I'm going to be really, really busy, but this is no better time, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to give it 2 weeks. It's basically now for the next 2 weeks for people to book that time. But, you can go in November, you can book in December, you can book in the future. It's unlimited number of bookings for 50% off. because I don't even know if I'm going to be doing bookings after the end of this year or something like that. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what the world holds in store. I'm very excited to present that. I will have the link up, and Crystal can even help put the link up right in our chat room here. It already exists, but you need to follow that link in order to work through the promotion tool page in order to get that right. Anyhow, thank you everyone for coming and joining us today.
Thanks to everybody for joining us. Thanks, Julien.
Thank you, Don. And come and see us on julienwells.com. And you can find links to everything basically, and join my Facebook public page group to get updates and notifications, especially when I want to go live. And we'll see you next week.
Perfect.
All
Thanks,
right.
everybody.
Good night.